So before the Australian Open begun, I gave some predictions on a bunch of different categories, including who's going to be the best country, who's going to have the most aces, some players that might go on some unseeded runs, or maybe even a dark horse pick, and also the semi-finals and finalists. But it wasn't a crazy Australian Open. It was kind of predictable for the most part. So let's have a look at my predictions. So starting with the 1 and 2, who's going to go further? Swiatek, Sabalenka. I think Sabalenka is going to do better than Swiatek at this event. All right, good start. I picked Sabalenka to do better. She did one better by making the final. Swiatek lost in the semi-finals, of course. Both losing to Keys in the end. So I guess I can thank Keys for that one. But there we go, starting with a bang. Having a look at the qualifiers now, and there's a lot to choose from. But on the men's side, I'm going to go with Kepfer. And I'm going to go with Paulina Kudermetova. All right, so both lost in the first round, and to be honest, it wasn't actually that big of a quali run for anybody, really, on the women's side. I know there was a lucky loser pick. You could have picked Elise, but when I made the prediction, she wasn't in the main draw. So, I mean, look, there's only a couple of players that made the second round on the women's side for quali, so maybe I shouldn't be too hard on myself. But on the men's side, I should have picked Tien. Tien making the fourth round. He had the best run, of course, beating Medvedev along the way. Should have picked him for the best quali for the men. All right, the country that's going to do the best at this year's Australian Open, I have to go with America. I feel like they've got so many good players. All right, so no surprise there. America are doing so well in tennis right now. They had so many players doing so well. Of course, Keys winning the whole event on the women's side. You had Shelton in the semifinals, Paul in the quarterfinals. On the men's side, of course, Gauff, Navarro also making it deep runs on the women's side. So there you go. America played really well. They had the best tournament, and they have one of the best teams going around as well when you combine all the players. Okay, now looking at the aces, and I'm going to go with Piraka on the men's side. And on the women's side, I'm going to go with Zhang. Very good at hitting serves. Okay, so I feel like I was a little bit unlucky here because Piraka lost first round to Monfils. Monfils obviously had a good run, kind of took his spot in the draw, making to the fourth round. So he did hit a lot of aces in that first match, but he just didn't play enough tennis to get enough aces. Zverev actually won the ace count for the men. No surprise there, made the final, hit a lot of aces. And on the women's side, Zhang lost again in second round, massive upset. She was on track to doing really well after the first couple of days, but Keys hit the most aces on the women's side. So I feel like I was a little unlucky there. I expected more from the two players I picked, and unfortunately they lost. Okay, so the big one, Sinner, Alcaraz. Who's going to go further? I'm going to go with Jannik Sinner. He's got a better draw than Alcaraz. All right, so I got that one as well. Sinner obviously winning the tournament. Alcaraz losing in the quarterfinal stage to Djokovic. So I'm pretty happy with that one. I mean, look, maybe a no-brainer in the end because, of course, Jannik Sinner didn't really get threatened at all during his tournament. He was only, dropped a couple of sets here and there, but there it is. Sinner, I'll take that one. So unseeded success stories, players that I think will go on a bit of a run. I'm going to go with Menchik on the men's side. He's been really good. And on the women's side, I'm going to go with Aryna. She's been really good to start the year. So I wasn't too mad with the Menchik pick. He made the third round, lost to Rybakina in the end. He was up 2-0. Probably should have won that match, made the fourth round. Then I could have claimed it. But he did beat Rudel on the way, so that kind of prediction came from that. But obviously should have picked Sonego. He made the quarterfinals. He was the only unseeded player in the men and women's side that actually made the quarters. So it wasn't really a big tournament for unseeded players. And Aryna lost first round to Putintseva. Putinseva's been playing really well lately. Again, I could have picked a lot of players who made the sort of the fourth round, but there was no real unseeded players going on a run this time, except for Sonego. Top 10 upsets. This is an interesting one, but I have to go with Dimitrov on the men's side. He's coming in with an injury. And on the women's side, I'm going to go with Collins, who is currently number 10 seed. Okay, so I got Dimi right. He was coming in injured. I knew that he probably wasn't going to go too far. He did actually retire in that first round, which was really a shame. But he could have picked a lot of players on the men's side. There was a lot of upsets. Rublev, Ruud, Medvedev, of course, losing really early as well. So there's a couple of names you could have picked there, but I'll take Dimi. And Collins actually did a little better than I thought. She did almost lose in the second round. She ended up losing the Keys in the end. In the third round, that's not an upset, so I can't claim that. But should have picked Paolini, maybe Pegula. Obviously, Zhang was a huge upset. Maybe I should have gone with her, but I'll take the Dimitrov pick. So now for my dark horse picks. And on the men's side, I'm going to go with Lehechka. He's outside the top 20 in the seeds. And on the women's side, I've got to go with Mukova. She's been so good over the last couple of months. Okay, so look, Lehecka did okay. He had a pretty decent run, making it to the 4th round, lost to Djokovic in the end. I expected him to do slightly better than that. Should have gone with Shelton. He made the semi-finals, or maybe even Sonigo making that quarterfinal. And then on the women's side, Mukova lost 2nd round to Osaka. I should have picked Keys. I should have picked Keys.
Because she won the whole thing and it would have made me look super smart.
All right, so 2 of the big names as well going head-to-head. Gauff, Rybakina, who's going to do better? I'm going to go with Rybakina in this one. I reckon she might just do a little bit better. All right, I wasn't far off. I mean, if Keys wasn't just beating all the top 10 players, maybe I would have got this one. Gauff made the quarterfinals. Rybakina lost in the 4th round. Of course, Gauff losing to Badosa and Keys taking out Rybakina. So, man, I wasn't too far off this one, but can't claim it. So my semi-final predictions, and these are not going to be wild at all. I'm going to go with Sinner versus Medvedev on one side of the draw, and on the other side of the draw, I'm going to go with Djokovic taking on Zverev. On the women's side, I'm going to pick Sabalenka versus Gauff, and then Rybakina taking on Swiatek. All right, so 3 out of 4 from the men. Happy with that one. Medvedev, obviously, the shock loss. Shelton took his spot in that quarterfinal, in that semi-final. And then I think a lot of people probably thought that Alcaraz would play Zverev, but Djokovic obviously got through, so I had my faith in Norway, and it worked out this time. And on the women's side, I got 2 out of 4, so I'm not too mad at that either. Obviously, Gauff losing to Badosa. Badosa took her spot to play Sabalenka, and then I picked Rybakina instead of Keys, and Keys beat Rybakina. So I'm not too mad at that. I'm pretty happy that I got most of the semifinals picks right. And the big one, who is going to win the Australian Open? I have to go with the favourites, the defending champions. Sinner on the men's side, Sabalenka on the ladies' side. All right, so I got the Sinner pick right. Maybe a no-brainer because he was the favourite for the whole tournament. He never really looked in trouble. And Sabalenka, I was this close to getting that one right as well. She didn't have the easiest draw. I mean, she did get through a few matches early pretty easy, but from the 3rd, 4th round onwards, she was making it real tough for herself. And the more the tournament went on, the more scared I was that she wasn't going to win. And she ends up losing to Keys in the end. Keys played fantastic. I don't think anyone would have picked Keys as their favourite to win, or at least their main pick. Maybe a dark horse pick, but not her main. But I'm happy with that. You know, I got the Sinner pick. I'll take that. And Sabalenka wasn't too far away. Let me know down in the comments below, how'd you go in your predictions? Because I know a bunch of you did comment on the video on the second channel to give me your predictions. Did you pick the winners?